We're back again with more messages from the other side. Having any contact with demons is sure to be a terrifying experience. These poor people had real contact with dark entities, but they lived to tell the story. So let's jump into the top 5 real demons who contacted the living, part 2. In at number 5 we have Old Friend. This story was told on Reddit about someone's interaction with a demon as a child. When he was around 4 years old, he moved into his new room in the home. They decorated the room, including a large mirror that covered floor to ceiling. Not long after moving into the room, he started talking to the mirror. He would talk to it for hours, playing in front of it, and it seemed that he saw it as a friend. His parents began to worry about this and wanted to know more. They asked about the mirror and he explained that it is where his friend lives. He was able to tell them what he looked like, his hobbies, and how he had died. This made the parents very concerned. They didn't want to scare him, so they went and did their own research about the house. It turns out it had a lot of paranormal activity linked to its past. People tormented by spirits or befriended and then used. They feared this friend could be a demon looking for its next victim. When they looked into the name of the friend, it turned out he was an old owner of the home who had died in that very room. They didn't believe in the paranormal before this, but they were terrified for their child. They moved out of the house a month later and he never mentioned his friend visiting again. Coming in at number 4 we have the Mirror Person. This story happened when a young girl about 12 years old had to get up during the night to use the bathroom. Her house was completely pitch black. She could not see anything. She made her way across the hall to reach the little bathroom at the end. When she finally got to the bathroom, she hit the light and glanced up for maybe a few seconds. She saw a face staring at her from the mirror. It was not her reflection, it was a demonic face. She said it was as if someone was stood at the other side of the glass, pressed up against it and staring at her. She screamed and ran. She was hysterical and didn't know what to do. Her dad woke up and found her. She explained what she saw and he went to investigate the bathroom. He then did a prayer session with her to calm her nerves down and protect her from whatever she had seen. The face was seared into her brain and she could not get it out. She eventually fell back to sleep. Fast forwarding to her 30s, and she had practically forgotten that night since she was so young at the time that it happened. One night she was visiting her dad for the weekend. They were sat quietly when he brings it up to her. He said, "Remember that one time you saw a face in the mirror?" The memory came rushing back to her. She felt a chill run down her spine. "Yes, I remember," she replied. "Well," he said, "I sometimes think about that night." He looked down at the floor with a serious expression. "I saw it too." He explained to her exactly what he had seen, and it was the same demon that she had seen. Neither of them could understand what had happened. She is glad that her dad kept it to himself all of those years and respects his bravery. She would have never slept in that house again had she had known the demon was real and not just something from her mind. Coming in at number 3 we have the cell phone. The interesting thing about this story is that the demon left proof of contact. Usually they go undetected or make it so no one will believe you anyway. It started when a young boy's mum bought a new home. She hadn't spent time to set the phone up yet. After a long day at work, she got home and put the phone on the counter. Her son asked if he could play on the phone. She saw no harm in this and just told him not to make any calls or send any messages. At around 11:20 she began to get tired and wanted to tuck her son into bed before she went off to sleep. When she got to his room, he wasn't there. He never sleeps anywhere but his bed, so this was surprising. Starting to feel panicked, she looked around the rest of the home. She finally found him asleep on her bed, still clutching the phone in his hand. She picked the phone up to inspect what he had been doing on the phone. At first she didn't notice much, just a few minor changes. The background had changed and there were a couple of new apps. She was looking through the pictures as he had been playing around with the camera. She began deleting the pictures until she got to the most recent one. It was a picture of her son, but it was taken from above. The angle was taken as if the phone was floating above the bed. If this wasn't disturbing enough, there was also an elderly woman's face in the corner of the image. There were no explanation for how any of this happened. Who was the woman? As she shared her story, others reached out to explain this is a sign that a demon is in her home. Coming in at number 2 we have the goodbye. One Reddit user told the unsettling story from a family member saying goodbye. It all started when their grandmother passed away. The Reddit user was Jewish and so the family always participated in Shiva when a loved one passes away. This is a 7-day mourning period. You build a shrine for your loved one and sit by it for 7 days to allow them to say goodbye. Friends can come and visit during this period, with the direct family members staying by the shrine and holding a service each day. They would have an hour of silence each night at 7 PM to allow their passed on loved one to to say goodbye to them. The first 6 days passed and nothing out of the ordinary happened. They mourned and had their hour of silence. On the final day, something strange happened. Something felt different during the silence on the 7th day. The room felt cold. As part of the shrine was the grandmother's most cherished vase. It was valuable to her, which is why it was present for the shrine. After the room felt cold, a couple of the family members looked at each other in confusion. The next minute, the vase flew off the table and smashed to pieces on the floor. Everyone was stunned. The vase had been sat there as long as they had remembered, without any risk of it smashing. It felt like something was in the room with them. It was as if it knocked over the vase to make its presence known. It didn't feel like it was the grandma though. She would never have broken that vase. The next moment, the doors to the home all slammed shut at the same time. At that moment, the feeling of being watched disappeared along with the cold spot. The family shrugged it off as a coincidence and nothing more. But could it have been that the grandmother saved them from the dark entity who felt welcomed into their home? After the doors slammed, the house felt at peace, as if the grandmother had helped them and then simply said goodbye and passed on. And finally, in at number 1, we have ancient Athens. This story dates back to the Roman Empire in 113 AD. The story was well documented, so it is still told today. There was one large and roomy home in Athens that no one would live in. It had a bad history of hauntings and paranormal activity. It was seen as a dark, evil place that no one could understand, so they all avoided it at all costs. Others who lived around the home would often tell of the loud noises of iron clashing in the dead of night. Sounds like the rattling of chains. Some had even noted that they had caught glimpses of an old man with a long beard and disheveled hair through the house's windows. For a long time, the house sat empty as no one was brave enough to investigate. Back then, little was known about the paranormal. People avoided discussing the house, but those that did believed the home held a demonic spirit. No one wanted to risk getting cursed by the demon. The owner of the home often tried to rent the home out for a cheap price. When the philosopher Athenodorus heard about the story, he decided to rent the home. He wanted to investigate and confront the demon if he had the chance. He arrived for his first night in the home, skeptical if the stories would be true as it seemed to be far-fetched. On his first night, the entity appeared. It was an old man as described, with chains attached to him shackling him to the floor. He was screaming, although he didn't hear the scream as he would from the living room. It sounded distant, like it was only in his head. The entity disappeared after a short period of time. Athenodorus marked the spot where he had appeared. In the morning, he ordered that spot be dug up. After digging for a short while, they came across some old remains. They had been in there a long time. Although they had decayed, you could clearly see the chains where they had been attached to the ground. These were the remains of the entity, a tortured soul that became demonic through their demise and being forgotten about under their home. The remains were given a proper burial. After this, the spirit was never seen again in the home. It was believed to have finally been able to pass on. Well, there we have it. Do you guys agree with our list? Do you believe demons actually exist? Have you ever experienced a haunting? Leave us all your thoughts and feelings in the comments down below, and perhaps we can do a part 3. And on that note, if you haven't already, be sure to give this video a big thumbs up, and until next time, I'll see you later. Itchy nose. Means I'm gonna have an argument.